Picture this: a dusty frontier town where secrets run deeper than the wells, and redemption comes at a price higher than gold. What happens when an innocent bride seeking a simple blessing stumbles upon a truth so dark it could shatter everything she believes about faith, love, and forgiveness? Today's story will take you on a journey through the unforgiving landscape of the Old West, where a man of God harbors sins that would make the devil himself tremble. Before we dive into this gripping tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss the shocking conclusion that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about redemption. The morning sun cast long shadows across Salvation Creek's main street as 20-year-old Mary Catherine Sullivan adjusted her simple blue dress and clutched her worn leather Bible. The dust kicked up by her nervous footsteps danced in the golden light as she approached the small church that stood like a beacon of hope in this harsh frontier town. Mary Catherine had been married just 3 days ago to Thomas Whitmore, a kind rancher who had courted her for nearly a year. Their wedding had been simple, but something felt incomplete. She yearned for a proper blessing from a man of God, something more personal than their hurried ceremony. The church was modest, built from local timber and painted white, though the paint had begun to peel under the relentless desert sun. As she pushed open the heavy wooden doors, the familiar scent of old wood and candle wax enveloped her. "Reverend Blackwood," she called softly. From the shadows near the altar emerged a figure that made her breath catch. Reverend Samuel Blackwood was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair showing premature silver at the temples. He moved with fluid grace, and his gray eyes held depths that spoke of experiences far beyond a frontier church. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, his voice a low rumble, "I was wondering when you might come. I was hoping you might offer a special blessing for my marriage, Reverend, something more personal than what we had during the ceremony." Samuel studied her with those penetrating gray eyes. "Blessings are not always what they appear to be, Mrs. Whitmore. Sometimes what we think we want is the very thing that will destroy us." "I don't understand, Reverend. I simply want God's blessing on my union with Thomas." "And you believe I'm the man to provide that?" His laugh held bitterness. "Tell me, what do you know about the man who stands before you? You're our preacher. You've served this community for how long?" 2 years. 2 years since I rode into this town with nothing but the clothes on my back and a Bible in my saddlebags. But what came before?" He moved closer. "That's a story that might change your mind about seeking my blessing." The afternoon light seemed to dim as clouds passed overhead. Mary Catherine found herself stepping backward. "Sit with me, Mrs. Whitmore. If you truly want my blessing, then you need to know exactly what kind of man you're asking it from." Against her better judgment, she sat in the front pew, leaving careful distance between them. "Do you believe in redemption?" Samuel asked. "Do you believe that a man can truly change, no matter what sins he's committed?" "Of course. The Bible teaches us that all sins can be forgiven." "All sins? Even murder, Mrs. Whitmore? Even the taking of innocent life?" Her heart began to race. "Reverend Blackwood, I think perhaps I should go." "No. You came here seeking truth. But before I can give you that, you need to know exactly who I am." The church fell silent except for her rapid breathing and the distant whistle of wind through the old walls. "My name is indeed Samuel Blackwood, but 2 years ago, I was known by a different name, a name that struck fear into hearts from here to the Mexican border." "What name?" Samuel walked to the altar, his back to her. "Black Sam Coltrane." The name hit her like a physical blow. Black Sam Coltrane, the gunfighter whose reputation for violence was matched only by his skill with a Colt .45. "No, that's impossible. Black Sam Coltrane is a killer, a monster." Samuel turned back to face her, and she saw terrible weariness in his eyes. "Yes," he said simply. "He was." The silence stretched for an eternity. Mary Catherine stared at this preacher who had just confessed to being one of the most feared gunfighters in the West. "You're lying," she whispered, though she knew it wasn't true. The pieces were falling into place. His unusual grace, the way his eyes catalogued every entrance, how he positioned himself, so his back was never to a door. I wish I were Mrs. Whitmore. God knows I wish I were. But you're a preacher. You serve God. You've married people, baptized children. And every day I wonder if I'm fooling myself as much as everyone else. His voice carried unbearable pain. Do you want to know how Black Sam Coltrane became Reverend Samuel Blackwood? She found herself nodding despite her terror. It was 3 years ago, in a town called Perdition. I'd been hired by a cattle baron named Morrison to settle a dispute with homesteaders. Simple job. Run them off. Maybe kill 1 or 2 to make an example. His hands clenched into fists. But when I got there, I found families. Men, women, children who'd been farming that land for years with legal claims. Morrison just wanted it for water rights. What did you do? What I always did. I followed my contract. When they refused to leave, I made good on Morrison's threat. The church grew colder. There was a family, the Hendersons. John Henderson, his wife Sarah, and their 2 children. A boy named Michael, maybe 8, and little Emma, no more than 5. Mary Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. John was a proud man, a good man. He stood up to me, said he'd rather die than see his children believe that might makes right. Samuel's laugh was broken, so I gave him what he asked for. Oh God. I shot him down in front of his wife and children, and when Sarah threw herself over her husband's body, screaming, I shot her too. The children, Mary Catherine whispered. Samuel's face crumpled. They ran. Little Michael grabbed his sister's hand, and they ran toward the woods. And I raised my gun to shoot them too, because that's what Black Sam Coltrane did. But you didn't. Please tell me you didn't. No, because in that moment, looking at those terrified children, I saw something that stopped me cold. He turned to her. I saw my own children. Your children. I had a family once, before I became Black Sam Coltrane. A wife named Rebecca and twin daughters, Lucy and Grace. They'd be about the same age as the Henderson children now, if they were still alive. What happened to them? I left them. Walked out when the girls were barely 2. Told myself they'd be better off without me. But the truth was, I was a coward. Afraid of responsibility. Afraid of becoming the man they deserved. The wind rattled the windows, causing the church's bell to toll softly. So when I saw those Henderson children running, I saw Lucy and Grace. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't pull the trigger. What happened then? Morrison was furious. Refused to pay me. Said I'd gone soft. That night, sitting in the saloon, drinking whiskey and trying to forget what I'd done, I realized something. Samuel stood and walked to the altar. I realized I'd become exactly what I'd always feared, a monster. A man who could kill parents in front of their children without feeling anything but satisfaction. But you felt something. You let the children live. Too little, too late. That night, I decided Black Sam Coltrane had to die. I rode out of Perdition and never looked back. I traveled for months, trying to figure out how to live with what I'd done. Then I found myself in a Colorado town where the preacher had just died of fever. So you became a preacher. The townspeople were desperate. They begged me to stay. I thought maybe this was my chance to do something good for once. Mary Catherine moved closer despite everything he'd told her. And have you found redemption? I don't know. I've tried to be a good man these past 2 years. I've married couples, baptized children, comforted the dying. But every night, I see John and Sarah Henderson. I hear their children crying. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked for my blessing. And I can't give you something I'm not sure I have the right to give. How can a man who's taken innocent life bless the union of 2 good people? Mary Catherine looked around the church, at the simple cross, at the stained glass window casting colored light across the floor. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course. And Mrs. Whitmore, I understand if you feel you need to tell your husband. Tell the town. I've been living on borrowed time anyway. As she walked toward the doors, she paused and turned back. Reverend Blackwood, do you believe God has forgiven you? Samuel was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, but I hope so. Because if he hasn't, then I'm truly lost. Mary Catherine walked home in a daze, Samuel's confession echoing in her mind. When she reached the ranch house, she found Thomas on the front porch, whittling and humming softly. "There's my beautiful wife," he said, standing with a warm smile. "How did your visit with the Reverend go?" It was enlightening. Thomas studied her face with careful attention. "You look troubled. Did something happen?" "I'm just tired. It's been a long day." That evening at dinner, she found herself studying her husband's honest face. Thomas was everything Samuel was not. Simple, uncomplicated. He had never killed anyone, never caused parents to die in front of their children. "Thomas, what do you think about redemption?" He looked up, surprised. "I believe in it. The good book says all sins can be forgiven if a man truly repents." All sins? Even murder? That's a heavy question for dinner time. What's brought this on? If a man had done terrible things, but then tried to live a good life, do you think God would forgive him? I think God's mercy is greater than any sin, but forgiveness doesn't mean there aren't consequences. A man might be forgiven, but he still has to live with what he's done. That night, Mary Catherine lay awake while Thomas slept peacefully. Samuel's words played over and over. "I shot him down in front of his wife and children. I shot her too." The next morning, she returned to the church. She found Samuel kneeling before the altar in prayer. "Mrs. Whitmore, I wasn't sure you'd come back. I have questions." "I thought you might." She sat in the front pew. "Yesterday, you told me about the Hendersons, but you didn't tell me why you became a gunfighter." "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters to me." He joined her on the pew. "I was 17 when I first killed a man. Self-defense, a drunk cowboy. But when I drew my gun and put a bullet in his heart, I felt something I'd never felt before." "What?" "Power. For the first time, I wasn't the scared kid whose father beat him every night. I wasn't the boy who got picked on. I was someone to be feared." "So you kept killing." "I kept surviving. Reputation was everything. If word got out you were fast with a gun, men would come looking to test themselves. And if you weren't fast enough, you died. But you were fast enough. I was the fastest. For 15 years, men came from all over to challenge me, and I killed them all." "What about Rebecca and your daughters?" "I met Rebecca when I was 25. She was a preacher's daughter in Kansas. She saw something good in me, something worth saving. She knew what you were. She knew and loved me anyway. We were married 6 months later, and for a while, I thought maybe I could change. But you couldn't. The reputation followed me everywhere. Even in that small town, men would come looking for Black Sam Coltrane. Every time I had to kill to protect myself and my family, I could see something die in Rebecca's eyes." "So you left." "I left. Told myself I was protecting them. But I was protecting myself, afraid I'd eventually hurt the people I loved." "Do you know what happened to them?" "Rebecca remarried. A good man who could give her and the girls the life they deserved. I heard they moved to California. I hope they're happy." They sat in silence until Mary Catherine spoke. "The night you let the Henderson children go, that was the beginning of your redemption, wasn't it?" "I'd like to think so. But redemption isn't just about stopping the bad things. It's about making amends. And how do you make amends for taking someone's life? You save other lives. You use whatever time you have left to do good." Samuel looked at her with something approaching hope. "Do you really believe that?" "I think God doesn't waste anything. Not even broken people. Maybe especially not broken people." Before Samuel could respond, the church doors burst open with a crash. 3 men strode in, spurs jingling, hands resting on their guns. Mary Catherine gasped and moved closer to Samuel, who had gone very still. She could feel the change in him, muscles tensing, breathing controlled. In that instant, she glimpsed the man he used to be. "Well, well," said the center man, tall and lean with cold blue eyes and a scar from ear to mouth. "If it isn't the famous Black Sam Coltrane, playing dress-up as a man of God." Samuel stood slowly. "Gentlemen, this is a house of worship. I'll ask you to remove your hats and lower your voices." The scarred man laughed. "Still playing the part, Sam? We both know what you really are, Who are you? Mary Catherine whispered. Name's Jake Morrison. Maybe your preacher friend has mentioned my father. Mary Catherine's blood ran cold. Morrison, the cattle baron who had hired Samuel. What do you want, Jake? Samuel asked quietly. Justice. My father died last year. Took a bullet in the back. But before he died, he told me about a certain gunfighter who didn't finish a job he was paid to do. Your father got what he deserved. Maybe. But you still owe him for breach of contract. Those Henderson kids you let run? They didn't disappear. They made it to the next town. Told everyone what happened. Word spread that the great black Sam Coltrane had gone soft. Samuel's face paled. What are you saying? Those kids ruined your reputation, Sam. My father lost money because of your failure, and I intend to collect. How much? Jake's grin widened as he drew his gun. I don't want money, Sam. I want your life. The church fell silent except for Mary Catherine's rapid breathing. Jake Morrison held his gun steady, pointed at Samuel's chest, while his companions flanked the exits. You can't do this, Mary Catherine said. This is a church. Sacred ground. Jake laughed coldly. Lady, the only thing sacred about this place is that it's about to become Black Sam Coltrane's tomb. Samuel stepped in front of Mary Catherine. Let her go, Jake. This is between you and me. Oh, she can stay. I want her to see what happens when a killer tries to play preacher. Mary Catherine could feel Samuel's tension, the coiled violence beneath his preacher's facade. But Samuel surprised her. Instead of reaching for a weapon, he raised his hand slowly. You're right, Jake. I am Black Sam Coltrane. I've killed more men than I can count. If you want to kill me for that, I won't stop you. Jake's eyes narrowed. What's the catch? No catch. But I have one request. You're not in a position to make requests. Let me give Mrs. Whitmore my blessing first. She came seeking something from God, and she deserves to receive it. Jake considered, then shrugged. Fine, but make it quick. Samuel turned to Mary Catherine, and she was struck by the peace in his eyes. Gone was the torment that had plagued him. Mrs. Whitmore, you came seeking a blessing for your marriage. I told you I wasn't sure I had the right to give such a blessing. She nodded, tears streaming. But I was wrong. Redemption isn't about being perfect. It's about being forgiven. And forgiveness isn't something we earn. It's something we receive. He took her hands in his, steady and warm. I may be a killer, but I am also a man touched by grace. And that grace is what I pass on to you now. He squeezed her hands gently. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he give you peace. And may your marriage be a testament to love's power to overcome all obstacles. That's touching, Jake said sarcastically. Now step away so I can finish this. But Samuel didn't move. You know, Jake, your father was a coward and a bully. But you're something worse. Jake's face darkened. Watch your mouth. You're a man who would defile a house of God to satisfy twisted justice. You'd terrorize an innocent woman to get to me. At least when I was killing, I did it in the street. Shut up, Jake snarled, his gun hand shaking. You're not here for justice. You're here because you're afraid. Afraid that if Black Sam Coltrane found redemption, it might mean there's hope for other killers too. I said shut up. Jake screamed, but Samuel kept walking toward him. You want to kill me? Then do it. But know that you're not killing Black Sam Coltrane. You're killing Reverend Samuel Blackwood, a man who spent 2 years trying to make amends. Jake's gun shook violently. You think putting on a collar makes you different? You think prayers wash blood off your hands? No, but I think trying to do better is what makes us human, and that's something you'll never understand. Suddenly, the church doors burst open again. Drop your weapons. Thomas stood in the entrance with a rifle, backed by several townsmen. This doesn't concern you, Whitmore, Jake snarled. Like hell it doesn't. That's my wife you're threatening, and our preacher you're planning to murder. Your preacher is Black Sam Coltrane, a killer. I know who he is. My wife told me everything, and I don't care what he used to be. I care about what he is now. Mary Catherine stared at her husband in amazement. Thomas, how did you? I followed you. I knew something was wrong yesterday. When you left this morning with that look, I figured you might need help. This doesn't change anything, Jake said. Coltrane still has to pay. What he did, said a new voice from the back, was save our lives. Everyone turned to see two figures in the doorway, a young man in his 20s and a slightly younger woman, travel-worn but familiar. Samuel's face went white. Michael, Emma, the young man nodded. Hello, Sam. It's been a long time. Jake's gun wavered. Who the hell are you? We're the Henderson children, Emma said, the ones whose parents this man killed. A collective gasp rose from the townspeople, but then Michael spoke. We've been tracking Jake Morrison for 3 months, ever since we heard he was hunting the man who saved our lives. Saved your lives? Jake sputtered. He killed your parents. Yes, Emma said quietly. He did, and we'll never forgive him for that. But he also let us live when he could have killed us, and that choice changed everything. Michael stepped closer to Samuel. We spent years in an orphanage, wondering why you let us go. Eventually, we realized something. What? Samuel whispered. You let us go because you saw something in us that reminded you of your own children. You let us go because you remembered what it felt like to be human. That doesn't excuse what he did, Jake protested. No, it doesn't. Nothing can. But it was the beginning of something better. Michael addressed the church. For 5 years, we've been tracking down families of men that Black Sam Coltrane killed. We've been using money we earned to help them, to pay for funerals, support widows and orphans, to make some small amends. And every year, Emma added, we've sent money to this church, because we heard Black Sam Coltrane had become a preacher, and we wanted to support his work. Samuel stared in amazement. You've been helping me? We've been helping the man you became, the man who chose mercy over murder, the man who spent 2 years trying to heal instead of harm. Jake's gun shook violently. This doesn't change the fact that he's a killer. So are you, Emma said quietly. We know about the men you've killed, Jake Morrison. The difference is, Sam stopped killing. You never did. I want justice. Jake screamed. No, Thomas said firmly. You want vengeance. And there's a difference. For a long moment, the church was silent. Then slowly, Jake's gun hand began to lower. This isn't over, he said finally. Yes, Samuel said quietly. It is. Jake looked around the church, at the armed townspeople, at the Henderson children with their quiet dignity, at Mary Catherine with her tear-stained face. His shoulders sagged in defeat. Come on, he said to his men. Let's get out of here. As the 3 men left, Samuel turned to face the Henderson children. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry for what I took from you. Michael studied his face. We know you are, and we forgive you. How? How can you forgive something like that? Because, Emma said gently, forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what we choose to give. Mary Catherine watched through her tears as Samuel fell to his knees, finally accepting the grace he had sought for so long. The church filled with quiet weeping, not just from Samuel, but from many who had witnessed this extraordinary moment. Thomas put his arm around his wife. Are you all right? She nodded, looking around the church, at Samuel kneeling in prayer, at the Henderson children standing like angels of mercy, at neighbors who had defended a man they barely knew. Reverend Blackwood, she said finally. Samuel looked up, his face streaked with tears. I'd still like that blessing, she said. Samuel smiled, the first genuine smile she had ever seen from him. Mrs. Whitmore, it would be my honor. As afternoon sun streamed through the stained glass window, casting rainbow patterns across the floor, Reverend Samuel Blackwood raised his hands and spoke words of blessing over a young couple who had taught him that redemption was not just possible, but inevitable for those brave enough to seek it. And in that moment, surrounded by forgiveness and grace, the last vestiges of Black Sam Coltrane finally died, leaving only a man who had learned that the greatest victory was not in the speed of his draw, but in the courage to lay down his guns and pick up hope instead. 6 months later, the church in Salvation Creek had grown. Word had spread about the preacher with the dark past who had found redemption, and people came from miles around to hear him speak about forgiveness and second chances. Mary Catherine and Thomas became his closest friends and strongest supporters. Their marriage, blessed by a man who understood the true cost of love, became a beacon of hope in their community. And sometimes, on quiet Sunday mornings, two figures could be seen in the back pew, Michael and Emma Henderson, who had learned that the greatest revenge was not in taking a life, but in helping to save one. In the end, the naive bride had indeed met a preacher with a dark past. But what she discovered was that darkness, no matter how deep, could never overcome the light of redemption. If this story of redemption and second chances moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to change. And let us know in the comments what you thought of Samuel's incredible journey from killer to preacher. Until next time, remember, we all have the power to write a better ending to our story.